Hey Ryan, these last few years you've been here, obviously you've been in that assistant role. How much of that has been with the safeties? How much of a change is that now, with what you're going to be doing now with Jerry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think all the DB coaches that I've worked with here, they've really done a good job. It's been beneficial to me, allowing me to work with all groups, the safeties, the nickels, the corners. So, that role will continue. I think I'll be able to, get my hands on John and Stokes and Rasul and all the other corners as well. But naturally, with my background as a safety, I lean towards the safeties. But it's a credit to the coaches that I've worked with. They've allowed me to get experience with all the guys in the room.
Are you guys going to meet independently as safeties and corners more than in the past, or is that going to be about the same?
Yeah, we haven't really talked about that. I don't foresee that, really, because the way that we collaborate so good in the room and meeting as a group, there's pros and cons to both approaches. I know in the past they've done it that way before I was here. But I think it's important to have those, the corners and the safeties in the same room so you're hearing the coaching points that are going on. And obviously Jerry Gray's been coaching a long time, and he's got the ability to coach both groups as well. So I foresee us being together. I personally think that's a great approach. So.
Hey Ryan, will you guys, or do you personally lobby to have Darnell maybe play more in the star role? And just curious why he hasn't done more of that.
Yeah, so he's definitely got the ability to do that. I don't know that I would say lobbied, but he's got the tools necessary. I mean, that's what we look for in safeties, is guys who are not only able to support the run, but they can cover, they can blitz. We've got multiple guys on the roster who can do that. So he gives us a good option, certainly.
What do you think you're at, Ryan, with Vernon Scott? Just didn't play a whole lot last year.
Yeah, it's funny you asked about Vernon. I just talked to him on the phone last night. I FaceTimed him. Good conversation. Vernon's a guy who we've just got to continue to progress. It's really the same story with all of our young guys. The unique thing about the young guys is that we haven't had a chance to put our hands on them for the 9-week off-season period, and I think a lot of people miss that. From the outside, they don't understand how important that time is for the young guys. When I was, at previous spots, you get a chance to take them through at a different pace. And as we all know, when you get into the season and training camp, it's go time. So you may not have as much time to really dive in and continue to review all the different things that come with being an NFL safety. But I like where Vern's at. Mentally, I think he showed a lot last year on the practice field. But we just look for him to keep improving. So,
back to Darnell. This is obviously a really big year for him contractually, and all that stuff. What's the next step? He's made some plays for you, but not maybe consistently. I'm not sure how you view it though.
Yeah, here's how I view it. Darnell is a special talent. I think Darnell Savage has the ability to be an elite player in this league. I think all of our players have multiple places where they can improve, and so we're going to continue that same approach with Darnell. The thing about Darnell, two things really. Okay, he's incredibly intelligent. He is probably among the best that I've been around with the ability to retain information, and so he carries that in. The second thing, he cares so much that he takes great pride in not making mistakes twice. So I think with that approach, he's going to continue to just build and build and build. I know he's focused on that, talking to him in the off season, and so I look for him to just continue getting better and better and better and developing into that elite player.
And where does he need to improve to become that elite, to reach that elite level?
Yeah, I think there's multiple areas, and I don't want to get too detailed right now. We'll get these guys back in, and I think we do a great thing in how we approach their point of attack from last season, and we have those conversations because these guys come out of the season and then bang, they're asking me, hey, what do you think I should work on, Coach? And of course, we have some ideas for him, but we take a holistic approach to it. I mean, we're going to work on his coverage ability. We're going to work on his tackling ability. We're going to work on him mentally. But we do that for every single safety, every single corner, every single nickel. So right now, I don't have one particular answer for you. There's not something like, hey, if Darnell could do this, I see him being an all-pro player. It's not that cut and dry. But I think as with all of our safeties and really all of our players, consistency is key. Can you continue to make the flash plays on a consistent basis? And that's when you get an elite player.
When it comes
Ryan,
to,
how would you describe your teaching style? You talk about that 9-week period and kind of some enthusiasm here when you talk about Savage. How do you describe yourself as a teacher?
That's a good question. I'm just going to be honest with you here. I approach our players kind of like I approach my sons in parenting. And I say that to our guys, and they're kind of like, look at me, you know, like, because we're coaching grown men, of course. But you have to have great attention to detail. You have to point out when there's things that need to be corrected. But then conversely, on the other side, when they make a play or there's small things that they get done on the practice field, you have to be the first one out there to jump around, hug, you know, tell them what a great job you did. And you know, I'm a firm believer in that as a parent with my sons. My wife would say I'm probably pretty hard on them. But that's the same approach, with respect, of course, that I try to take with the players. But I just think, you know, in the NFL, you're working with guys. They're not working for you, of course, right? And there's some back and forth between the players where I can gain some insight from a guy like Adrian Amos that he can give me coming off the field. So I think there's some humility involved, being able to, listen and receive what they're telling you, and then put things in simplest terms for them so they can play fast.
back to Darnell, when it comes to the track and the deep ball, I mean, he's had some issues with that the last couple of years. Is that kind of an innate ability that you either have or you don't, or is that something that can be coached? And if so, how do you coach that specifically?
Yeah, I think that absolutely can be coached. I think one of Darnell's greatest abilities is his range in the post. We all know in here that he can really track down any ball that's put in the air, and I think opposing quarterbacks know that. Some of the stuff that you guys may or may not see on the practice field is in between those periods, we'll go into the indoor and we work on those types of things. I won't get too technical with you of all the things that's involved in reading the quarterback and all the tips and tells and indicators of a quarterback's shoulders, his hips, his weight, all those things. But Darnell's done a great job at reading the quarterback, and he continues to work on finishing on the ball. I'm not concerned with that. I'm excited about his ability to get to the football because the ball skills aren't lacking. So those are opportunities for us that we'll take advantage of.
Hey, Ryan, what's it been like working with Jerry the last 2 years, and what's kind of been your biggest takeaway from the time you spent with him?
Yeah, so Jerry obviously has accumulated a lot of knowledge from his playing time, from his coaching time. He is, he has a former player's view. So a lot of times, Jerry has given to me different ways to look at things, of course, and it's been really good. And I hate to repeat myself, but I jump back to the initial thing I said of, he allows me to work with all groups, and especially last year in the little off season we did have, being able to work, press technique with the corners, and I just really appreciate that about Jerry. But he's definitely a great one to work with, and I just try to soak up as much as I can while I'm in there with him.